All right, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is pushing hard for the passage of the nearly $2 trillion Democratic boondoggle masquerading as COVID-19 relief.
American people are overwhelmingly in support of this legislation. A majority of Democrats, independents, and in many polls Republicans support this bill. It seems the only group that doesn't support this bill are Senate Republicans and House Republicans.
Could it be that the reason Republicans in Congress are opposed is because, unlike the American people, who are only hearing the favorable sound bites fed to them by the media, that these members of Congress know what is in the bill? Well, joining me now to help answer that question and talk about yesterday's Senate Armed Services Committee hearing regarding global security challenges is U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota. Senator, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Tony, for the opportunity. Always a pleasure.
Let's first talk about the bill that will soon be before you, because you're going to be voting on a number of amendments probably tomorrow on this reconciliation provision that's being used to pass this almost $2 trillion COVID-19 relief bill. It does not appear that any Republicans are in support of it, and I would guess it's because you know what's in it.
Well, you said it perfectly, by the way. And when Chuck Schumer makes those points that nobody but Republican members of Congress oppose it, he's wrong on the first point, and that is that there actually was bipartisan opposition in the House. A couple of House Democrats actually voted against it for the same reason the Republicans did, and that is because they know what is in it. And the talking points that the leader puts out and that the speaker puts out are barely a representation of the bill, because it might surprise people to know that 91% of this COVID relief bill has nothing to do with COVID.
Yes.
And if, in fact, they brought a bill in front of us that provided more money for getting the vaccines distributed more widely and faster and some other assistance for direct COVID relief, they'd get 100 votes in the Senate.
Yeah, so what does that 91% do? I mean, in part of what I've seen as I've looked at the bill is, number one, unlike the previous coronavirus relief measures, this completely does away with that firewall of protection that has been around taxpayers in keeping them from being forced into partnership with Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers. In this, it's gone.
It's gone. So you're talking about, of course, the Hyde Amendment, something that has had bipartisan support for over 40 years, and that is to prevent taxpayer dollars from funding abortions. And they're so brazen in this bill that $414 billion of their spending is not Hyde protected. And they're doing it because, again, you talked about the reconciliation process. It only requires 50 senators to vote for it, and then Kamala Harris can break the tie. And there are many Democrats that are opposed to that. But if that was transparent, so remember, there's not been a single hearing on any of this. $2 trillion without a single hearing. No discussion across party lines, at least no overt discussions across party lines. When you don't have hearings, you don't have committee action. Of course, you don't need to discuss it with the other side, which means that it's away from the C-SPAN cameras and the media that cover these things. And that's what people don't know. And that's why our job over the next couple of days, Tony, is not just to stand up against this bill, and not only to offer amendments, but in the process of offering amendments, expose the things that the people don't know about, that they didn't learn in the House, because the House doesn't have as transparent a process as the Senate does with our what we call vote-a-rama. That is, offering unlimited, really, amendments on the floor of the Senate. And we hope to be able to expose a lot of these problems.
Well, you're going to have to do it on your own, because the media doesn't appear to want to help. In fact, recent polling just out today, the American people, actually the majority, think the media is going awful soft on the Biden administration as compared to what they did to the Trump administration.
Well, the fact that they don't hold him accountable for any of the things he said while he was running for president that he's now not doing, such as transparency, such as reaching across the aisle, such as being a moderate leader, such as holding up things like energy development. And granted, we didn't expect him to be the same as Donald Trump, but he did say that he supports things like fracking. I mean, you would think that at the very least they would hold him accountable for the promises he made that he's now already not keeping. And a bipartisan president doesn't spend the first 40 days just doing executive orders apart from the public arena and certainly apart from Congress itself. So, yeah, you're right. They've gone awfully soft on him. Not a big surprise. How about the fact that he hasn't even talked to them yet? I mean, there used to be a time when reporters at the very least expected the president to talk to them, and at this point he's yet to hold a news conference and directly talk to the media. Even the playful, friendly media he doesn't talk to.
I was talking with Senator Tom Cotton yesterday on this bill, and he believes, in part because what we just talked about the not only the removing of the hide protections, but you've got about $350 million, $1 billion, excuse me, going.
Yeah.
I get, what's $1 billion here, $1 billion there?
We deal in trillions now, Tony. Come on.
I know. I'm behind times. I'm a throwback. I'm back when we actually dealt in millions. So $350 billion, that's with a B, going to state governments, most of those blue states that, number one, cut off their revenue in some cases because they shut down their economies, and others are just plainly mismanaged. They're getting payoffs in this, and that money can actually go to Planned Parenthood.
Well, that's exactly right. In fact, the PPP program, which was one of the very popular, perhaps the most popular tool for small businesses to stay alive and keep their employees on the payroll rather than put them on the unemployment rolls. That money they're allowing to be go to Planned Parenthood. We made sure that money could not go to Planned Parenthood, that certain types of organizations would not receive that money. And that's not even just a Hyde Amendment issue. That had more to do with the size of the organization, the associations, and all those kinds of things. And they've changed that. The $350 billion for states, by the way, $27 billion, surprise, surprise, is actually for California. And California, not only have they shut down their economy and, in my view, mismanaged many of their programs, they actually expect to have an increase in funding, in revenue this year, regardless of all the bad decisions they made, and they still get $27 billion. Now, what we're hearing now today is that a number of Democratic members of the Senate have realized that their state's not going to do very well by this. And so now they're talking about an amendment to the $350 billion, imagine, that would provide a sort of a floor for everybody so that at least every state gets something, whether they need it or not, and then another formula that's a little more needs-based. And these are the kinds of things, Tony, that happen when a bill like this comes over to the Senate and it starts getting talked about. Right. And people like you start covering it. And then you expose some of these major problems in the bill. And then Democrats themselves start finding out what's in it and going, well wait a minute.
Why didn't I get my cut?
Exactly right. Exactly right.
I want my slab of bacon.
Exactly. So it won't. The price tag may not go down, but hopefully the spending that survives in it will at least be better. Now, to be sure, you need to understand, I think you know this, I think you stated this, there's not a Republican yet that has announced support for this bill.
Right.
I think there's only one that's even considering it. None of them supported it in the House. So regardless of how much better it gets, or shall I say how much worse it may get through the amendment process, either on the floor or in a manager's package that Chuck Schumer would put up, it's still a really bad deal for the American public because we're going to have to borrow all $2 trillion. And by the way, the economy is rolling back. Revenues are coming back in. The best thing we can do is whip this stupid virus and open our businesses back up and let freedom reign.
I've got a clip from yesterday's hearing, but I don't have time to play it because we're about out of time, and I want to get your thoughts on this based upon your questioning of the witnesses there. This was on strategic challenges, security challenges around the globe. And you were asking questions about China. Are we taking the right approach to China, treating them as a competitor, or are we treating them as basically someone that is gunning for us?
So one of the things that's happened over the last year or two is that China's been found out by a lot more people, and particularly Europeans and Americans. And so we have an administration coming in that's very pro-China that suddenly has to deal with some realities. And one of the question I asked was pretty basic, and it was General McMaster and Dr. Tom Wright from the Brookings Institution that were the witnesses. And I said, are we right to keep treating China as a, quote, developing nation? when here we are, we claim, and rightfully so, that they're our number one adversary, militarily, politically, economically, and yet they get treated, they're called officially a developing nation, while we're a developed nation. That has a lot of ramifications,
Yes.
Tony, in international affairs, as you know. And neither one of them really answered the question directly, but indirectly. I think it's clear. They're a developed nation, and if we're going to treat them like a near-peer adversary, we need to treat them like a near-peer adversary.
I mean, we're giving them money through the International Monetary
Yes.
Fund. We're doing all these things for them, yet they're stealing our secrets, our technology,
Yes.
and they are working to undermine us. I mean, it's crazy that we would
And
be
building a massive military.
Yes, and we're helping them. We're funding it. It's crazy.
Time to
Senator,
stop.
we're out of time. I want to thank you for joining us. Always great to talk with you.
Always my pleasure. Thanks, Tony.
All right, take care.